Well, as we near the end of summer, shoppers continue to hit the supermarket for those final summer barbecues. But do most people know what they're really buying at the grocery store? Retail giant Walmart has recently confirmed that it will soon start selling Monsanto's new sweet corn. But what's troubling is that this corn has been genetically engineered with an insecticide built right into its DNA. This particular toxin found inside your corn occurs naturally inside caterpillars and even some moths. The toxin is a powerful insecticide that's proven to liquefy the stomach linings of insects that try to grab a bite. So we know what it does to bugs, but at this point, we don't know what it can do to humans. So what does this all mean for the corn consumer? To discuss this and more, I was joined by Ken Albala, history professor at University of the Pacific and author of the book you see there, The Lost Arts of Hearth and Home. He first explained how grocery stores can sell genetically modified corn with insecticides, that have never been tested on humans.
Well, that's true of all genetically modified food, but we've been eating it for quite a long time anyway. I mean, the genetically modified field corn has been on the market for a long time. It just gets made into corn syrup and corn oil and other products. So it's not like this is brand new to us. We've been eating it for a long time. And even the Bacillus thuringiensis has been used on plants in the US for about 50 years and in general for about a century. So that's also really nothing new at all. And in fact, the strange irony is BT is organic. So I mean, we know in general that that's fairly safe. What we don't know is what happens when you genetically modify it to have the corn express the bacteria itself.
I guess you say it's organic because it comes from insects, from bugs. But what is significant about all this is that now it's being sold at Walmart, a grocery store that sells a quarter of the grocery foods in this country. So, Ken, this is really affecting a lot of people.
It is, and I think it would be nice to label it. I think Walmart knows very well if they put a label on it, people would just shudder in fear and run, and maybe that's not a bad thing. I think, you know, the pending legislation in California, hopefully something will, some labeling laws will be put in place, and maybe the rest of the country will follow suit. I think until people can be assured that nothing's going to happen to them when they eat genetically modified food, they have reason to be scared. And labeling, I think, is the only really legitimate way to address those concerns.
So essentially what this does, my understanding, it liquefies the stomach lining of the bug that would consume this corn. So essentially, does this mean venom is being used in food crops?
Well, it's a bacteria, you know, and like any bacteria, some specifically target some kinds of bugs. This really doesn't affect other creatures. In fact, there was a big fear years ago that butterflies would be killed off by BT toxin. But in fact, it doesn't affect them and certainly doesn't affect mammals in its natural state. There's no way, it's everywhere. In fact, like much bacteria, our whole body is filled with bacteria that we depend upon. So BT is not, in its natural form at least, is not going to harm us, and we've been using it on crops for a long time. So that's nothing new.
So you're saying that this toxin won't harm humans?
It may in its genetically modified form, you know, and I think people are fearing that a lot of the increase in allergies that we've had over the past decade or two may actually be partly due to the fact that we're consuming genetically modified food already. I think what makes this a little different, A, is that Walmart is of course really powerful, and they can do anything they want. and you know, the fact that Walmart sells organic food, I think, is amazing in and of itself. But I think the larger question is people really don't know what this is going to do to them in the long term, and it would be nice if the government mandated testing. You know, just conduct some tests. We do it on everything else, and the reason they don't is that it's assumed that this corn is exactly like any other corn you buy on the shelf. That they're the equivalent organism, and therefore we know corn doesn't hurt us, and therefore we can eat it.
But we know that it's not exactly the same because it has been genetically modified to contain these toxins that are found in bugs. And do you know what that kind of sounds like, Ken? An episode of Fear Factor. And if this scares you, let's take a look at this first.
It's scary.
One at a time, grab them and eat them. Time is wasted. There you go. You got it. You got it. You got it. Grab it and eat it. Eat it. Come on, Junior, get one. Get one. You each have to eat 5. Just grab it. Don't think about it stinging you, Junior. Just do it. Don't stare at it. Eat it. You're wasting time. You keep playing with it, it's just going to make it angry.
That's right.
All right, Ken, if you're cringing when you're watching that, I can't even really watch the whole thing. I mean, should you be disgusted at what's inside your corn? Because, I mean, it's being derived from insects.
No, it's really not. It's the corn will look and taste exactly like all fresh corn has. There's nothing scary about it, really. I think what we don't really know is the long-term effects. Short-term, it's going to taste like corn. It'll
Well,
look
that's kind
like
of
corn.
scary. Isn't that kind of scary, not knowing what the long-term health effects are?
That's true, but that's also true of every way we manipulate food now today. I would think we should be equally scared about all the, additives and flavorings and fragrances that we add to food. We have no idea what those do really either long term, and we don't know what the new processing of food does to us. So this is maybe we may wake up 10 years from now and say, what was all the big fuss? We've been eating all this genetically modified food for a long time, and what were we afraid of? This is just, crazy people's fears. Hopefully that will happen. Hopefully we're not going to wake up one day and say,
Hopefully,
oh,
but we just don't know. We just don't know what those long-term health implications, some new ailments could come out as a result of eating all this genetically modified food that hasn't been tested by the Food and Drug Administration. And speaking of that, why isn't the Food and Drug Administration required to test this corn?
Well, because the companies that make this stuff, Monsanto in this case, have a lot of control over lobbying and a lot of control over who gets elected and where money goes. And so they have political power in such a way that we grow corn in this country basically because the lobbies in the middle of the country spend a lot to make sure that corn is grown so their supporters, so the farmers are supported and whatever. But I think, the government could very well just say, all right, we're going to test all this stuff and make absolutely sure. They don't, mostly because they don't have access to the technology. They're not given the plans to experiment with. Monsanto says, well, we do that, and it's perfectly okay, and trust us, we know best. And you know what happens when you trust companies that are pretending to be in your best self-interest. I mean, look what happened with margarine, right? I mean, for decades and decades, they told us, eat margarine, it's heart healthy, you won't get sick, and then suddenly we realized, trans fats, oops, we messed up. It would have been better if you'd been eating lard the whole time. Things like that. Obviously, science makes mistakes. That's the nature of scientific knowledge, is, things are always rediscovered anew, and people always make very big mistakes sometimes. We're hoping this one won't be a big mistake.
All right, I guess we can only hope, but hopefully we'll get some testing of the foods, and at least some labeling on there. Ken, we are out of time. Thanks so much for coming on the show. That was Ken Albala, history professor at the University of the Pacific and author of The Lost Arts of Hearth and Home.